Welcome to a Tuesday show. We're going to be here all week. The team's going to be assembled all week. To those of you who have donated, you are part of the team. All of you, my viewers, everybody, people who comment, people who love the show, check us out on social. You're all part of the team. But donators, people who donate, you are a huge part. And if you can, still need it, whatever you can. Just wanted to put it out there. Go to Brett Breaks Things, hit the donate, and I thank you so much. We're going to be here all week. I will say this: there are 3 Thursday hockey broadcasts that I have to administrate left in the season. So we'll have to take 3 more Thursdays off, I think, in a couple weeks, then following that in quick succession, but then that'll be that. So we won't be missing too many days in the near future. And man, this week is already going very quickly. Obviously the subject matter, just like with the Renee Nicole Good shooting, the subject matter is heavy, but this situation is developing quickly. It's morphing. Things are happening. And depending on how you feel about, the policy and how you feel about the situation in Minnesota, a lot of this can be viewed as a positive. And of course, the courts are getting involved a little bit more. And things are developing in the courts where we told you that's the front lines on all of this. And we told you about the chances of success in certain courts, U.S. district courts versus the appeals courts. And we're watching it play out. But this is all morphing. I do want to bring this to you at the top of this subject. And we're just going to put it out here, and we're going to let it play out. Hopefully what I described to you right now will be part of an investigation. But it appears Alex Preddy may have been known, or definitely was known, to these agents on the scene prior to his death. So according to CNN, federal immigration officers have been collecting our personal information at the scene of protests and demonstrations, okay? According to a memo earlier this month, agents temporarily assigned to the city, this is a quote from the memo, the memo asked them to capture all images, license plates, identifications, and general information on agitators, protesters, demonstrators, etc., so we can capture it all in one consolidated form. Well, we reported on what that consolidated form was last week. That's that domestic terrorist list. That's the consolidated. I'll tell you right now where that consolidated information is going. Straight to that domestic terrorist list that they just formed. They just created. So they've been collecting the data on protesters, demonstrators, agitators. Okay, so about a week before his death, Alex Preddy was driving his car, and he saw federal ICE agents on foot chasing a family. He stopped his car, got out, began blowing his whistle and shouting at the officers. When he did that, immediately 5 officers tackled him against his car, breaking his ribs. At that point, he was on their list. Okay. Now, in that incident, they quickly released him, and the agents ran up the block after the possible detainees. They just left him there, broken ribs. He said at the time he was lucky he's alive. He can't believe he's alive. I'll let that sit right there. Here's what we do not know. We do not know if the agents who encountered Alex Preddy in the moment of his death knew who he was. We don't know if they put a facial recognition up. Maybe one of the officers off screen, off shot, had his facial recognition up. Maybe one of the officers recognized him. We don't know everything that was discussed between these officers in that moment. A lot of it's inaudible. So, according to CNN reporting, Alex Preddy was known to these officers in some capacity before he was killed by them. We will let that play out. I'd like to see this aspect play out in a trial against these officers. I'd like this reporting to become hyper relevant in possibly convicting some of these gentlemen. But we're going to let that sit right there. Did they know him? Did they recognize him? Did the officers on the scene access their database of domestic terrorists and find Mr. Preddy there? They went at him pretty quick. They went right at him. Contrary to the administration trying to tell you, you didn't see what you saw. We all saw him standing in place, phone out, nowhere near his gun. And officers spray him and approach him and tackle him. They approached him. They sprayed him. He had a phone. Okay, so in the 48 hours since Alex Preddy was murdered, and yes, I am using the word murdered, just like I did with Renee Nicole Good, because that is exactly what I feel happened. In the 48 hours since, the Trump administration is starting to change course. And it's not just what he's saying or not saying. It's not just what he's sending Caroline Leavitt out to say, although in spots, she hasn't really been on message. I feel like there's so many wires happening, so many avenues of propaganda and spin and 180s and different things that are being said to different people behind closed doors. I feel like some of those wires are getting crossed. And every now and then, Carolyn isn't quite on message yet. And we'll bring some of that to you. We're gonna hear from her. We're gonna hear from her a little bit today. But in the 48 hours, some things have developed. One, the NRA pushback. I said it at the time. I was pretty emphatic about it. Now he's telling you, President Trump and their administration, at least at first, they were telling you, you can't go to a protest or out in public armed and not expect to get shot. That's what they're telling you. You show up armed in public with a permit legally, you might get shot. Well, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus wanted a word with the administration. The NRA wanted a word with the administration. Certain lawmakers who are really in lockstep with the NRA, cha-ching, had some things to say about this and still do. There is Republican pushback. Lindsey Graham, among others, and we'll bring you some, but Lindsey Graham told the president that the grisly visuals on TV needed to be changed, saying that they were overshadowing the success of other aspects of his immigration agenda. You see that little contortion there? There's a lot of that going on right now. There's a lot of subversive messaging out of the Republican lawmakers right now because this is hitting critical mass optically, and they know it visually. The way it's being interpreted by Americans as a whole, this is hitting critical mass, and they know it. And you can't just, look, if you want to be in this guy's good graces, you cannot just go out and, speak directly against his policy or things he said. You can't be that literal. You can't be that blunt. You got to stay on this guy's good side, and there are ways to do that. That's one way. Lindsey Graham's massaging it a little bit. But, he's kind of clear. And Trump's out here making deals. Things are changing. He's making deals. The deal maker's making deals. He's trying to make deals with Walz and Ellison. He's trying to massage his wording around them as well, because they're making a lot of sense right now. The things they're saying, Walz and Fraze and Ellis and the AG, Keith Ellison, the things the Minnesota state officials are saying resonates right now with the American people as a whole. They're saying things that make sense. They're saying things that empathize with what they're feeling about these killings. And Trump knows it. At least he does now. You got to let the news cycle play out, because it's what's on TV that influences Trump the most. What you're going out there in front of a camera or a microphone and saying or reporting or accusing, that's what resonates with Trump. And things are starting to resonate with Trump. And As I'm talking about massaging his little messaging around Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, he had a phone call with Tim Walz. And we'll bring you some of the details from that. There's not a ton of details to have, but know that it wasn't some kind of contentious shouting match. No. It was in stark contrast to the things Trump had been saying just days before. A lot like his little meeting with Mamdani. Hours before, days before, calling him a communist, the worst thing to ever happen for New York, pumping money into his opposition. He sits down all of a sudden. He's a tough guy. He's got some things to say that I can understand. We came to an agreement, and I like the way he, gives good talk. Once again, apparently after this phone call with Walz, Walz characterized the call as productive. Trump said they're on a similar wavelength. Okay, that's starting to soften a little bit. Why? Why is this happening? Why is it softening? It's because Trump and his administration is starting to worry that the Operation Metro Surge is starting to look a little chaotic and messy. And it's not bigly, strongly, quickly like it's supposed to be. Okay? So they're worried, and they know it. People are saying it. Allies speaking out against what he has said, what he has done. Allies going on TV like former Rep. Trey Gowdy from South Carolina. He said, we certainly, and this is a guy who absolutely bends over backwards to, defend and normalize the crazy crap that comes out of the Trump administration. Gowdy's on board for all of it. Not here. We certainly should not be labeling him as a domestic terrorist who is going to execute cops. There's no evidence to support that. So he's saying directly, Trump's account, the Trump administration's account, is not supported by the evidence. He's just saying it flatly. He said that on Fox News. He said, John Curtis from Utah said, I disagree with Secretary Noem's premature DHS response, which came before all the facts were known and weakened confidence. And that's another theme, is Republicans getting a little fed up with these knee-jerk reactions. These coming to these conclusions before an investigation can even get started. And they're going out in front of cameras and they're talking about it. And he knows that. And also, poll numbers are starting to come in. The administration knows this as well. They are taking the temperature, and in July, or June rather, right, Renee Nicole Good killing, as this Operation Metro Surge really began, the polls were in at that time. The Pew poll, which was on the lower end, 42% of Americans approved of the Trump administration's immigration policy, specifically in Minneapolis. 42%. The best they got was the Marquette poll, where 50% taken in the Marquette poll said, we agree with the policies, administration, enforcement. Now, after the Alex Preddy shooting, the highest we could find was a 39% Americans approve of this policy. And right now, 61% of Americans polled feel this ICE administration has gone way too far. That is why. But Leavitt's got a job to do, so she's going to come out and do it.
First, does the president remain fully confident in Kristi Noem's ability to lead the DHS?
Yes.
And then just secondly, just on that Wall Street Journal reporting that we saw yesterday, the president said at some point that the immigration enforcement officers would leave Minneapolis. Did the Saturday killing of Alex Preddy expedite that withdrawal at all?
To your first question, the answer is yes. He still has confidence and trust in Secretary Noem. To the second question, I would point you back to what I said earlier. If Governor Walz and Mayor Frey implement these common sense cooperative measures, CBP will no longer be needed to support ICE on the ground in Minnesota.
You hear that? Oh, she said a bunch right there. She said a bunch that we're going to get into all of. She said, one, what we've got, we have so much confidence in Kristi Noem. Really? Because you're dismissing her little rock star from ICE, Bovino. You're dismissing him and bringing in Homan to handle the situation in Minnesota. You sure you have complete confidence? You sure? And then she's talking about that deal, right? I'm telling you, Trump's out here trying to make deals now. We're talking about deals that could involve ICE pulling out of Minneapolis altogether. Them conducting this crazy operation, whatever the next one's called, maybe in California or someplace else blue. They might pull out altogether if Governor Walz and Jacob Frey could just come to the table on these common sense measures. Oh, we'll talk about those as well. They straight want to make a deal to pull ICE out of their city.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about it. Bovino out, Homan in. There's few people in the administration personally that I just get hit with this. Homan exudes so many negative personality traits, and I feel just like, even as base as just he's a buffoon, I feel like, but it's not all completely true. I gotta be fair. I mean, he's almost like a caricature. He says some despicable things, but he tries to be a little bit more measured at times. But they really love him within the administration. They love this guy. He's been around for a while. And now he's going to be sent in. He's going to be sent in to kind of clean up this mess, I think. This may be easing a softer stance on Minneapolis and Minnesota as a whole from the Trump administration. This may be a real sign that they're ready to possibly move on from this mess. And so Bovino out. Bovino, such stars as accost a Target worker, bloody him up, and drop him off in a Walmart parking lot, among other hits. That Bovino, the guy who, when he's sitting here and he's deriding Democrats for bringing up the word Gestapo, and then he comes out on TV and pronounces it perfectly, as if he said it many, many times. I wish I'd queued the video up. He's like, Gestapo. He said it perfectly. As he's outraged it's being used. It was a little weird. But among other hits, that Gregory Bovino. So he's out. Homan in. Homan, 64 years old. He's our border czar, right? He's our border czar. He spent decades within law enforcement. He began as a police officer in New York. He became a border patrol agent in California in 1984. He led the ICE deportation efforts under the Obama administration. He was the directing actor of ICE during Trump's first term, and he was the architect of such little ditties like separate children from their families at the border. That was Tom Homan. That was his handiwork. And then he comes out and says, and by the way, once we separate you, if your parents should run away, if the adults should get away and they try to come back to claim their kids, oh, we're taking them. Don't send your family. We're taking them. We got your kids. Tom Homan. He's got a signature on that one. Beautiful. He's the guy that has nonstop criticized sanctuary city policies. He wants them abolished, period, end of story. Since the first term. That's been his deal. But it may not be so much a pro-Homan move as it is an anti-Bovino move. He has been sidelined. Okay, there's no way to interpret it, no other way to interpret it, no other way to ingest this. He has been sidelined. He has been tapped on the shoulder. He's out. He's out. He hit the benches. Take a seat. You're no longer needed here. We tried it your way. We thought the American people, we thought our supporters would see your involvement and your personal style as bigly, strongly, and quickly, and a fulfillment of our immigration policy promises during the Trump campaign in 2024. Like, this was our big win. This is always our big win. And we're going to do this bigly and strongly, and we're going to keep you on our side as we cost you money, violate your constitutional rights, ruin all of our relationships with foreign allies, blow people out of the water, skip Congress for all the big decisions. You'll be okay as long as we are bigly, strongly on the immigration policy. That was the plan. And they thought Bovino was going to be the guy, the rock star, to deliver it. These guys have very different styles, Homan and Bovino, and they tried Bovino's style. Homan's style, it can be, he described it best himself. In that 2024 campaign cycle, Homan went on 60 Minutes, and he said in an interview that the president's massive deportation campaign would involve specific targeted arrests. That's what he promised. When we get in office, we're going to get these people. We're going to get them, right? We're going to get them. And then, well, just like Trump didn't know anything about Project 2025, Homan, who was an author of Project 2025 and one of the people who architected all of this philosophy on building camps for immigrants to hold them. Jesse Ventura came on Randy's show to talk about it. It was a whole thing. Oh, well, he doesn't know nothing about no Project 2025 in this interview. He said, quote, it's going to be okay, so he had heard about what was coming out. Let me give you the correct context. He had heard about all of these rumored changes that were in Project 2025 that he had helped write. And so in response to that, he said it's going to be a mass sweep of neighborhoods. It's going to be building concentration camps. I've read it all. It's ridiculous. No, you wrote it all. You wrote it all. But he said that's ridiculous. He said mass sweeps, ridiculous. Rounding them up and sending them to camps like Gitmo or El Salvador, ridiculous. That's what he said at the time. Okay? We'll see. Now that he's got control of Minneapolis, we'll see what his style is. But I'm going to guess it'll be in stark contrast to Bovino's style. You see, Bovino, he's been under a lot of pressure because there's been these internal quotas, 3,000 a day, which they have fallen short of every single day of Metro surge. They've never once got close to hitting it, but yet they've tried. They've tried with neighborhood sweeps and mass stops of brown people, roughing up anybody who's brown with an accent or just brown, like, off-duty agents in Minneapolis of color without accents who've gotten guns shoved in their face. And they're like, wait a second, I'm law enforcement. Oops. As they knock the one woman's ID out of her hand as she tries to identify herself with a gun in her face. Just brown. Supreme Court said brown in an accent. Brown at Home Depot. Brown at a farm. Now they're just doing brown. That's Bovino's style. Bovino's style? Hit them with the facial recognition app. Even if they've got a birth certificate, passport, ID, if the facial recognition app says undocumented, you take them. Bovino's style? Don't worry about the Fourth Amendment. If you've got somebody that you've got a leave the country, forcibly removed from the country by a judge, if we've got reasonable suspicion to arrest this person and they're in somebody's house, well, we don't need a judicial warrant. Just bust in the front door and take them. That's Bovino style. Break in the front door, put a gun in kid's face, and take them. Take them. That's Bovino style. So they're looking to move on from Bovino's style. They're looking to move on. And Carolyn Levitt's job is to come out and ease the transition and spin the spin and hit you with the propaganda about this and tell you that it's not what you know in your heart it is, which is Bovino's been sidelined. Let's try this now. She'll come out and tell you just how great Bovino's been, and it's not what you think it is.
Going to Minnesota, is Gregory Bovino also going to remain in Minnesota overseeing these ICE operations?
Mr. Bovino is a wonderful man, and he's a great professional. He is going to very much continue to lead Customs and Border Patrol throughout and across the country. Mr. Homan will be the main point of contact on the ground in Minneapolis.
And to follow up.
Yeah, so we'll come out and tell the lie. Right? Come out and tell the lie. We love Greg Bovino. No, he's the man. It's just Homan's going to come out there. Not really a lie, just a spin, just a massaging. But here's the thing. Bovino also is an extension of Kristi Noem. And there has been infighting between Noem and Homan. Oh, yeah. Apparently, they don't like each other and got in arguments quite a bit. And they haven't spoken to each other in months. So we may be seeing a little extension of some infighting, some politicking going on within the administration. Go figure that these crabs in a barrel, of course, they're trying to all curry favor with Don. Of course, they're going to butt heads. Of course they are. Of course. And apparently, those two have been butting heads quite a bit. This might be a signal that maybe Homan is in better graces right now with Don Trump. And one little thing about Homan that I don't want you to forget, okay? Don't want you to forget, as we talk about Homan being the voice of reason, the calming presence, the de-escalation from the Trump administration, how great this guy is. I don't want you to forget. Tom Homan in 2024 received a bag of $50,000 in cash from an undercover FBI agent who was in the midst of another investigation, investigating somebody else. And then here comes Tom Homan promising government contracts to these undercover FBI agents for a big bag of cash. Well, the Biden administration's DOJ opened an investigation immediately into Tom Homan. Of course they did. Of course they did. He just got like a cartoon-style bag of cash. So they opened an investigation. And then Trump won the election. And what happened then, kids? That's right. The Trump DOJ immediately dropped the investigation and called the investigation itself blatantly political. Oh, yeah. Please don't ever, ever forget that story as we talk about Tom Homan being such a great guy. Just amazing. Amazing. So Bovino, Mr. Weird uniform with the black strap across it, Mr. Gestapo, he said it so comfortably. Mr. Crap on all of your constitutional rights, like we're not going to stop till we hit them all like a bingo card. We're going to hit all of your constitutional rights. We're going to violate them all. U.S. citizens, you get bloody. Undocumented immigrants, you get shot. U.S. citizens, you get shot. Bovino style out. Homan style in. As he's making deals with Minnesota lawmakers, on the phone with Tim Walz, backing off his rhetoric, getting pushback from the NRA, it's starting to shift a little bit. Republicans are starting to say things. Democrats are starting to do things. It's starting to move kind of out of his control a little bit, and I'm here for it.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things. Fighting for America, one mic drop at a time.
You know, there's other signs that Kristi Noem might be falling out of favor just a little bit with Don. All right, her rock star out. Her enemy in, I guess. Maybe I'm dramatizing that just a little bit, but whatever. They've been at odds. They haven't talked, Homan and Kristi Noem, in 3 months or something like that. Okay, so her rival in, her rock star out, and, she got called in. She got called into a 2-hour meeting with Don himself. Oh, yeah. Her and Lewandowski, her number 2. Okay, should have brought Trisha McLaughlin in there as well. I'd like to know that she got yelled at by somebody. But I'm sure she got yelled at after Kristi got out of this meeting. But yeah, so Lewandowski and Noem, they get called into a meeting with Trump. And it's funny, I just want to note that Susie Wiles was there, Carolyn Levitt was there, Stephen Chung, the communications director, was there. But notably, a guy who is at every meeting, I brought you that story, the guy who's at every single meeting, Stephen Miller was not there. I'm not going to start guessing this way or that, but for whatever reason, maybe he wasn't available, although I doubt that. For whatever reason, Stephen Miller was not wanted or needed at that meeting. Maybe that's nothing, but maybe it's something. Maybe it's something, but they had the meeting. And apparently Noem and Lewandowski kind of got yelled at. Their job isn't in danger, according to sources within the administration who had knowledge of this meeting. Apparently they didn't get threatened with their jobs, not yet. but it wasn't good for them. It wasn't good for them. And I keep mentioning this phone call with Tim Walz. Let's knock this out. This phone call with Tim Walz. Okay, so they got on a phone call. Yeah. They did. They got on a phone call, and Trump said crime in Minnesota was way down and added, both Governor Walz and I want to make it better. In a statement after the call, Walz's office said the call was productive and said the two men had discussed broader issues that have been at the center of the state's complaints about the crackdown. According to the governor's office, Walz told Trump that impartial investigation, listen to this, Walz told Trump specifically, impartial investigations into the two killings were needed, and he called for a reduction in the number of federal agents in Minnesota. Trump, on the call, agreed to ensure a fair investigation and to look into reducing the number of agents, hence the deal making that Levitt was talking about. The deal making he's willing to do all of a sudden. Yeah. Apparently the call went well. That's a big 180 from calling directly for an investigation into he, Frey, and Ellison, and a few other prosecutors in the state, into impeding ICE's operation. Oh, Walz and Homan just had a meeting? Oh, yeah, hit me.
So Governor Walz's office released a statement saying Governor Walz met with Tom Homan this morning and reiterated Minnesota's priorities: impartial investigations into Minneapolis shootings involving federal agents, a swift, significant reduction in number of federal forces in Minnesota, and an end to the campaign of retribution against Minnesota. The governor and Homan agreed on the need for the ongoing dialogue and will continue working together towards these goals, which the president also agreed to yesterday. The governor tasked Minnesota Department of Public Safety and primary liaison to Homan to ensure the goals are met. Okay. So that's from Walz's office, basically saying everything. Okay. They're working together now.
So Homan's on the same page as the president, and he's out there trying to soften this. You know who's not on the same page? Listen to Carolyn Levitt. This is after the phone call. Okay, this phone call I just described you that went well by all accounts. Just gave you some of the quotes. Went well. Here's Levitt after that phone call. Listen to this.
This is a cover-up of the fraud in the state of Minnesota. He also posted Minnesota is a cover-up. These both happened after the shooting. So given that these came after the shooting, what is this here? What is the cover-up he's alleging?
Yes, it's a good question. I've spoken with the president about this at length. What the president is referring to is the fact that you have Governor Walz and, again, the mayor, who have been encouraging these left-wing agitators to come out and to harass and to dox and to threaten ICE and to make this conversation about and smear lies about federal law enforcement who, again, are just trying to do their jobs in an attempt to distract from the widespread, massive fraud that has taken place in their state. Billions and billions of dollars has been stolen from law-abiding taxpayers in Minnesota, and the administration continues to be very focused on getting to the bottom of it, especially, and the president raised a good question over the weekend, with respect to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who now has a net worth within the millions, and one must ask themselves why and how is that possible? Is she connected to the fraud?
Okay, all right. We addressed that. Ilhan Omar, nice try. So after this phone call, Homan gets it. He's got the assignment. He understands it. He goes out there. He starts to make nice with Tim Walz. President Trump on the phone making nice with Tim Walz, and afterwards calling it very productive. We came to some agreement, blah, blah, blah. And here's Levitt talking about Walz and Frey are assisting left-wing agitators in chaos. This is what I'm talking about with getting their wires crossed. I feel like that was a mistake by Carolyn Levitt, period. She just was late to the party. I mean, they're trying to make nice. Don't you see that? They're trying to reverse course a little bit. You're making it a little difficult there. Caroline, you're making it a little tough. Okay. Okay. So, Kristi Noem, I don't want to lose focus here. Because this all taken together, not good for her. It's just not good for her. Rockstar out, adversary in, gets called in to our meeting, yelled at with her buddy Jared Lewandowski, right? They're trying to clean up Kristi's mess. All while House Dems have announced they are opening an investigation into Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. They are opening an investigation, and that investigation will lay the groundwork for a push for impeachment. Now, the Democrats are saying, look, flat out, Republicans have never, ever tried to have any type of oversight on this administration. So we don't expect them to now. We know that they will not get on board to impeach one of this administration's cabinet officials. We know they won't. They do not have the guts. They do not have the backbone for something like that. We know that. So we're not even getting their help for this. We're going to do it by ourselves. We're just going to conduct our own investigation. And yes, we know that none of this will get through. It just won't, right? They know that. But they say, look, we got to say something. We got to get the process started. The midterm elections are right down the road. They're in November. Things could change. We have to lay the groundwork. We have to get it started. We have to say something. Benny Thompson, he is the top Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee. He's going to be one of the people leading this investigation. Of course, he's going to be particularly concerned about this issue. He said, we understand Democrats are in the minority, but that doesn't mean we have to sit on our thumbs and do nothing. He said the investigation and possibly an impeachment vote is a step in the process of letting people know that we do not like what we see. Boom. That's it. It's that simple, right? DHS officials, they pushed back on this announcement of inquiry. They pushed back immediately. Trish McLaughlin immediately gets out in front of it, says the Democrat Party is more focused on showmanship and fundraising clicks than actually removing criminals from our streets. You are wrong, Tricia. You are wrong. The Democrats are more focused on your administration crapping on the Constitution and violating human rights than they are right now of getting criminals off our street. Right now, they'd like your administration to adhere to the Constitution just a little bit. And then we can get to getting these undocumented criminals out of our country. No problem. No problem. Just do it the right way. She goes on to say, we hope they get serious about protecting America like Kristi Noem is. There's some other crap like that. McLaughlin, she's ridiculous. But this has been building. Democrats talking about impeachment for Kristi Noem. This has been building. Matter of fact, they had a caucus call on Sunday. The Democrats did. They had a caucus call to talk about just this very thing. They had special guests, Tim Walz and Keith Ellison. Not Tim. They had Tim Walz, the governor, and they had the Attorney General, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, on that caucus call as like special guest appearance. Okay, so they were on this call. Jared Moskowitz, right here from Florida. We love this guy. He's really good with quotables. He told his colleagues that if Noem isn't ousted or resigns, we will have no other option but to begin impeachment. Boom. That was the sentiment of the call. Benny Thompson, we just heard from him. He was on the call. He called for impeachment, right? Boom. Waltz praised the Democrats. Some Democrats have traveled to Minnesota. He thanked them. He praised them. Ellison, he said the same thing. He talked about, we're going to be suing this administration. They just kind of, lauded the efforts of the Democrats and state officials in Minnesota, and it was just this overwhelming impeach Noem sentiment on the entire call. A bunch of them did. At the end of this call, there were 115 House Democrats who co-sponsored articles of impeachment started by Rep. Robin Kelly, a Democrat out of Illinois. She has introduced articles of impeachment, and 115 have co-sponsored it. That number has already grown. And some interesting people are voicing support for this impeachment sentiment, including people who just helped the Republicans in the House fund DHS's budget. Yeah, now they're doing a little 180. Watch the politicking on this one.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Greg Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Okay. So we're talking about the Democrats' push here for impeachment, this little caucus call, where they all got on the phone and got really, right? Impeach Kristi Noem, impeach Kristi Noem. And Rep. Robin Kelly has articles of impeachment introduced with 115 signatures after this phone call. Well, in the just the days since this phone call on Sunday, it's already ballooned to 145 co-sponsors. So it's up a little bit. And there's some interesting people. See, this little subplot that's playing out below the headlines of what's happening in Minnesota, the subplot is we may be facing another shutdown. They can't get these funding bills through the Senate. They passed the House, right? These funding bills. It was 5 major bills. A whole bunch of stuff was going to get funded through September, including the DHS budget. Now, it faced opposition in the House, but 7 Democrats came across the aisle and helped them fund all of it, including the DHS budget, and it went on to the Senate, where it has stalled once again, specifically over the DHS funding because of what's happening in Minneapolis and Minnesota as a whole. Now, those 7 Democrats who came across the aisle, a whole bunch of them are jumping on this phone call and coming out and saying things right after and jumping on this articles of impeachment, pulling total 180s as the tide just turned against them. This is Capitol Hill for you. But Marie Glusenkamp, Laura Gillen, Tom Suozzi, oh yeah, they're all on board now. Glusenkamp said Noem needs to step down. Gillen forcefully demand that she be impeached immediately. But only Suozzi had the guts to come out and, address the fact that he had just facilitated monetarily Kristi Noem's campaign of terror in Minneapolis. He came out and he addressed it. And he said, I have regret for funding the vote. He stated that he failed to view the DHS funding vote as a referendum on the illegal and immoral conduct on ICE in Minneapolis. You're a liar, Tom. You're a liar. And you're a flip-flopper. You're a centrist. Now, look at you floating whichever way the wind blows. You're telling me you failed to recognize that vote would be a referendum on the DHS policy in Minneapolis? Bullcrap. You're telling me not one of your Democratic colleagues in the House came to you and said, look, Tom, if you fund this, you're going to be complicit. You're green marking, you're check marking, you're green lighting all that they are doing in Minneapolis if you help fund this. This, I'm sure that 1 or 2 of them said specifically, this is a referendum on their actions in Minneapolis. Tom, you're telling me none of them did that? Liar. But he's on board now. Whatever way the wind blows doesn't really matter, to Tom Suozzi from New York. All right, why are they really doing this? I'm going to tell you why the Democrats are really doing this. I'm going to tell you why the Democrats are really, really doing this. They're doing this because they want to get these Republicans on the record for things. They want to get the Republicans on the record being complicit to this policy, failing to provide any oversight at all on this administration, being 100% on board with all of these things that are becoming increasingly unpopular as we move into the midterms. That is why they are doing it. You think the Trump administration and the Democrats don't see the polling on this immigration policy right now? You think they're not aware that 61% of Americans feel ICE has gone too far? So they want to get Republicans on the record saying, we don't agree. We think ICE hasn't gone far enough, right? They want to get them on the record being complicit to this crap moving into the midterms. That's why they are doing it. They know the polling. Everybody does. They know how unpopular this is. Let's get them on the record. And Republicans, some of them are trying to get out in front of this. Whatever way the wind blows, right? And some Republicans are trying to get out in front of this. Some of them are using subversive language. And we'll get to some of those guys, right? I like to call them out. I see what they're doing. But some of them are a little more blunt. Some Republicans right now are getting a little comfortable rebuking this administration's policy. They're just getting more and more comfortable, aren't they? Let's hear from just a couple of them, right? Some of these Republicans, they want an investigation. They want to run and hide behind wait for an investigation. But even calling for an investigation is a rebuke of this administration's current policy, especially the DOJ and the Criminal Rights Division, who have told you we're not investigating Alex Preddy or Renee Nicole Good's shooting. We don't see a need for it. The administration that's been talking about immunity. The administration that has been barring state and local officials from accessing evidence. Any Republicans coming out asking for an investigation is denouncing Trump administration policy right now. Period. There's no other way to see it, and there will be no other way for Don himself to see it. So, some of this is a little remarkable. Like Senator John Curtis from Utah saying, I disagree with Noem's premature DHS response, which came before all the facts were known, and it weakened confidence. He's willing to say that. Jerry Moran out of Kansas. I'm deeply troubled by the shootings in Minneapolis involving the federal agents. Our Constitution provides citizens protection from the government. We have a right to free speech, to peaceably assemble, and to bear arms. Ted Cruz, a lot of arms bearers in his state. Oh, yeah. Second Amendment's real big in his state, so he has the gumption. He's built up the courage to come out and say just a little bit. But Ted Cruz, who is normally in total lockstep, came out and said just a little bit. He said, I would encourage the administration to be more measured, to recognize the tragedy, and to say we don't want any more lives lost. So it's something, not much. It's Ted. Very, very weaselly. Very weaselly. Ted Cruz. You know who he is. You know who that guy is. And then there's what Senator Todd Young said, which is going to be actualized. Todd Young said, I support a full and transparent investigation into the tragic event in Minneapolis. This is Todd Young, Republican from Indiana. He said Congress has requested testimony from ICE, CPB, and USCIS leaders, that's the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, leaders in an open hearing, and they should testify soon. And they are. Kristi Noem will be testifying in an oversight hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee on March 3rd. There you go. They want an investigation. Some want hearings, and they're going to get them. They might get both. Trump on a phone call with Tim Walz saying, yeah, I can give you transparent investigations into these killings. That's what Trump is telling Tim Walz. That is what Homan now, thank you, Scotty, is telling Tim Walz. Okay. So, Todd, you may get all of it. You may get the investigation, and you're going to get the hearings. We are going to hear from Kristi Noem. And I'll tell you something, others, and just the list is not just them. Dave McCormick, Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, Dusty Johnson, Michael Baumgardner, Max Miller, and Michael McCall. All Republicans have all called for an investigation and or hearings. They want answers from Kristi Noem, and they want investigations. All of them. Okay. And they're also a little pissed about another little thing that's been going on. They're kind of upset at the administration's really hasty public response. They don't understand why the administration can't just wait just a little bit before they call people, agitators, domestic terrorists, and possible massacre murderers. Okay? They're getting a little upset about this. And one email in particular. So DHS sent an email to Republicans on Saturday after the Alex Preddy killing to try to orient them on what's going on in real time. This email from DHS sent to the senators and obtained by Axios wrote that there was an incident between U.S. Border Patrol officers and an illegal alien with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Apparently, that was the last straw for many Republicans, because now they're not even getting the real information from this guy that they have bent over backwards to facilitate, to endorse, to make excuses for and justify. They do all of this. They sacrifice their integrity, among other things, never the cash, but all the things that Senate Republicans do for this administration. And this is how the administration attempts to orient them. When a crisis like the Alex Preddy shooting happens, they give them false information because of this knee-jerk response. That's another thing that's got Republicans really, really pissed off. So they're going to definitely grill her about that and many other things on March 3rd. Can't wait. We're going to have the video. We're going to have the people saying the things. We're going to have Republicans coming out and saying, you guys are doing a great job out there. I just have a couple questions. And you're going to have Democrats coming out saying, Gestapo tactics, violating our rights. You should be impeached. You should be ashamed of yourself. And anywhere in between. We're going to get all of that theater March 3rd. So I'm looking forward to that personally. But let me tell you something. Those are the Republicans that are willing to come out publicly and say these things, or come out publicly and be very direct about how they feel about the investigation and wanting answers from Kristi Noem. There's other more savvier, veteran Republicans who do it different ways. Okay? And these savvy, more veteran Republicans, they have serious concerns. How do we know? Because Jonathan Martin from Politico did this amazing report. Jonathan Martin he's got this inside communication with some serious heavy hitters in the Republican Party. He's got relationships with some of these people, and they've been talking to him. They've been talking to him. Not many of them will go on the record with some of the more inflammatory stuff, but they have been talking to Jonathan Martin. And what they are telling Jonathan Martin is they have concerns right now with Trump's policy, Trump's immigration policy in Minneapolis and how this is playing out. First, they are worried that this will spiral into more bloodshed. They don't want the Insurrection Act invoked. They don't want more federal agents or, God forbid, active duty troops in Minneapolis or any other blue city. They don't want it. They know it could become a bloodbath. That's first. They're very concerned. That is where Trump is leading this. 2, these Republicans have no faith in Kristi Noem. That is what they're telling Jonathan Martin. That is what they're saying amongst themselves and to President Trump. They do not trust Kristi Noem. They have no faith in her. They think she's underqualified. Okay? And they are really, really upset. The veteran, more savvy Republicans, if you want to cut straight to the raw politics of the matter, and that's what these guys are accustomed to doing, when you cut right to the raw politics, they are very upset that Trump is taking what is normally a home run issue every election cycle for decades, the border, and ruining it. The one thing that always plays in their favor during the election cycle is border and immigration control and undocumenteds. And now Trump is spoiling even that. One of them said, for the GOP, he said, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing. He said the immigration and border issue is for the GOP what healthcare is for the Democrats. He called it playing at home field. It's their number one moneymaker. They always win on it. You bang that drum as a Republican, you get elected. And Trump is ruining that. And they are calling him. And they are pleading with him. And they're calling his officials. And they're calling his aides. And they're hoping he starts to amend his policies before they have to come out and say something publicly. And we're starting to see that. And there's different ways to go about amending. And by the way, We're coming right back for overtime, and we're going to get into how they're amending Trump's policy.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Okay. All right. So the Republicans, the more savvy, the more veteran Republicans, some of the ones that talked to Jonathan Martin here from Politico, they try to get in Trump's ear. They call him. Graham admitted, hey, I called President Trump. I told him a few things. They're calling him and they're hoping that they start to see that their calls and their concerns have an effect because they don't want to come out publicly. But the more savvy of them that do feel they have to come out publicly, they use a few different strategies to not get in trouble with Don. That's the whole thing. If you want to apply maximum pressure as a heavy hitter in the Republican Party, and you got to say something, you feel, okay, I got to say something, you got to do it tactfully. You got to use a strategy. Right? You got to use a strategy or you're going to be on the outs with Don. And there are a few ways that these people use strategies. A few strategies they use. One strategy that they lean on quite a bit, and by the way, all strategies start with flattery. Let's just right there. You're bigly, you're strongly, you're quickly. Okay, know that every conversation starts like that. And even in public, when they start talking about Don, they start like that quite a bit. But one strategy they use is our president didn't fail. He was failed. Someone has failed him. That is a very popular strategy. You criticize his administration officials and his aides, people like that. Advisors, right? That's who you blame. Right? You don't blame Don. Check out Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt. He's a deal maker, and he's getting bad advice right now, right? Or Master Tom Tillis, this guy. Master Tom Tillis. Quote, any administration official who rushes to judgment and tries to shut down an investigation before it begins are doing an incredible disservice to the nation and to President Trump's legacy. There you go. We just did it all in one little lump right there. Whatever administration officials doing this to him, you're compromising our dear leader's legacy, separating him from all culpability in the matter. That's how you do it. Then there's the I'm only thinking out loud strategy, right? Like if I were Don, or I'm just trying to suss it out here, but right, like James Comer. Let's listen to James Comer, Republican from Kentucky. If I were President Trump, I would almost think about, okay, if the mayor and the governor are going to put our ICE officials in harm's way, and there's a chance of losing more, innocent lives or whatever, then maybe go to another city and let the people of Minneapolis decide, do we want to continue to have all of these illegals? You see there? That is flat out James Comer saying, just stop in Minneapolis. Stop it. Pull them out. This isn't going well. For your own good, pull them out, Don. But he can't say that. So he says this little ditty, this little massaging of the point. That's one way you could do it. I have worked as a manager in a couple places, not a lot. And right now I administrate a broadcast for this hockey team, the Typhoon Hockey Club here in West Palm Beach. So I've got some people that I hire, right? And God forbid I have to do something about performance-wise with somebody that I'm hiring. God forbid I have to have a talk or something. I do what some Republicans do, which is called a compliment sandwich. That's what I always called it. A compliment sandwich. Very straightforward. You know what I'm talking about, right? Compliment, hit him with the meat, compliment. Let's hear from Senator David McCormick. Of course I gave you an example of a Republican compliment sandwich. Here we go. David McCormick from Pennsylvania, Republican. As I have often said, I support Border Patrol, ICE, and the critical work they do to enforce our laws. Irresponsible rhetoric and a lack of cooperation from Minnesota's politicians are fueling a dangerous situation. See? I love you guys. You're bigly, strongly, and you're right. You're right to go after Tim Walz. Then he hits him with the meat. I also agree with the NRA and others. We need a full investigation into the tragedy in Minneapolis. We need all the facts, right? There's the meat. There's the meat. You better chill with your rhetoric about not being able to bring guns when you have a permit out in public. That's number one, Don. And number two, stop with the knee jerk. We need an investigation, right? That's what the meat is, but he says that instead. That's the meat. And then the sandwich, the bread. Compliment. We must enforce our laws in a way that protects the public while maintaining its trust. This gives our law enforcement officers the best chance to succeed in their difficult mission. Right? So that's how you do it. And of course, then there's the way that some have been doing it that I already described to you, which is calling for hearings, right? We can run and we can hide behind our committee appointments, right? I don't have to come out and say anything personally and isolated. I can go run and join a committee, and then we can sit here and really think about the things you've said and done, Kristi Noem, and we can act like, oh, we've got these concerns, and I don't have to be isolated in my opinion, right? And I can sneak them into a hearing. So they call for these hearings, right? We need to find out what's going on. Kick the can, act like I'm concerned. Meanwhile, do absolutely nothing about it. So those are some tactics that some of the more veteran members of the Republican Party have been implementing. I do find this really interesting. Another person has also made changes and spoken out pretty stark. The Minnesota gubernatorial race, the debates are happening as we speak. And just last Tuesday, there was a debate with 6 gubernatorial candidates in Minnesota. One of them was a guy named Chris Maddle. And Chris Maddle, I mean, he left the debate with his 5 other opponents, and he was absolutely baffled because not once was he or anybody asked a question about the immigration policy in Minneapolis. He couldn't believe it. He could not believe it after the killing of Renee Nicole Good, right? And before the slaying of Alex Preddy, they had this debate, and it wasn't brought up once. Not the killing, not the policy, not the ICE agents in the city. And he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. And he felt completely disenfranchised, and he went home to his wife, and she recounted what they talked about. And she said, I asked him on a scale from 1 to 10, how close are you to dropping out of this race? How disenfranchised are you? At the time, he gave her a 7. By Friday, later that week, he was at a 10. He has dropped out of the race. He said quite a few things about the immigration policy. This is a Republican gubernatorial candidate in Minnesota dropping out of the race over the immigration policy's activities. Pretty telling. He said flatly, I can't look my daughters in the eye and say I'm running as a Republican when they're pulling over Hispanic and Asians because of the color of their skin and what they look like. I did not sign up for that. Crazy. He just came out flat and said it. Wow. He said a lot of things. I'm going to paraphrase and I'm going to skip ahead, but he said, United States citizens, particularly those of color, live in fear. United States citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. This is wrong. He has dropped out. Now, here's an interesting thing about Chris Maddle. Got to be transparent here on Brett Breaks Things, even while the FBI, the DOJ, and the DHS refuse to be. I'll be transparent. Chris Maddle is an attorney with his own firm, and he personally represents Agent Ross, the agent that shot and killed Renee Nicole Good. Now, it's important to know he's not representing him in trial in any way, okay? He's just helping him gain access to other lawyers that may be able to represent him in a civil suit. Okay, he's not his trial lawyer. He's not defending him in a case because there is no case against Agent Ross. There is no investigation into Agent Ross, so he doesn't need that kind of representation. Civil Rights Division, DOJ, said we're not investigating Agent Ross, right? But Chris Maddle said, hey, there was a lot of knee-jerk reaction from both sides, and I felt like I was well situated to help Agent Ross should he get sued or charged. Okay, that decision has cost him, by the way. One of his main lawyers at his firm has quit over him representing Maddle, and but he probably won't represent him any further than helping him gain access to civil lawyers, because Renee Nicole Good's family has said, their lawyer, by the way, Renee Nicole Good's family's lawyer is the same lawyer who represented George Floyd's family in a civil case, and he is representing their family, Renee Nicole Good's family as well, and he has said already publicly, we are going to sue Agent Ross civilly. We're going to sue him. So he's going to need representation. It won't be Chris Maddle at that point, but Maddle is assisting him getting representation, but he's done. He's out. Out. Gets up off the table, walks away. Won't be running for governor over the immigration policy. I found that very, very interesting. Now, there's a couple other developments here that I also find interesting. A couple other developments. I gave you that list of Minnesota judges on the U.S. District Court for the District of Minnesota. I gave you that list, about 50-50 split between Republican nominees and Democratic nominees, right? A few Bush and Trump nominees and a bunch of Biden and Obama nominees, right? Two of the left-leaning, or at least appointed nominees, one was Eric Tostrud and the other one was Kate Menendez. Remember those two names? They could be selected as the judge who decides if any agents involved in killing Alex Preddy would stand trial at a state level or it would be pushed up to the federal level where they enjoy a bit of immunity. I told you a Minnesota judge will decide that, state or federal. And these two judges, Tostrud and Menendez, they could be selected to make that decision. In the meantime, they both held hearings. They both held hearings on Monday, just yesterday. Two separate hearings. First, Tostrud's hearing. This was a hearing to extend the emergency order that he had issued prohibiting the government from destroying or altering evidence. I told you about that, right? I just told you about that. Tostrud said, U.S. government cannot. Emergency order, you cannot alter or destroy evidence. Well, now, state officials are asking that Eric Tostrud extend that emergency order farther. Why? Why do they need this order extended into the future? Well, I'll show you why. I'll tell you why. First, know that the Justice Department lawyer defending the Justice Department in this matter is Frederick Siekert. And he said the Trump administration opposes extending this order. He opposes it. They oppose it. Why? Well, he says, we don't have to worry about the evidence being compromised. We're preserving it. We don't want the court to get involved in micromanaging an ongoing federal matter at this point. That's what the DOJ lawyer says. Okay, here's the truth. Body cam footage is uploaded to a database that is preserved by the Customs and Border Protection Agency. Okay, and they are supposed to be secure for 75 years. That's the protocol. When asked specifically, Siekert said, I don't know if the federal government would preserve evidence once the federal investigation ended. Okay, well, first, you're supposed to preserve it for 75 years. And now their own lawyer is coming out and saying, well, I don't know. Once DHS finishes its investigation, I don't know if it'll be preserved. And the reason it needs to be preserved is because state and local officials want that evidence, and a court has already told a DOJ, DHS, that they need to provide it for their own prosecution. You've got their lawyer flatly coming out and saying, I don't know if we're going to preserve it. And the judge is like, you need to preserve it because the state and local officials will need that evidence for their own prosecution. And when asked, he said, I don't know the answer to whether state and local officials will ever have access to the evidence. That's what the judge asked him. The judge asked him, will state and local officials have access? And he said, I don't know. I don't know. And the judge said simply, that seems like the most important question here. That's why we're here. That's why state and local officials want it extended. Because you're out here saying, once we're done with the evidence, we're done with it. We'll destroy it, whatever. I don't know. Literally, I don't know. Whatever. And so state and local officials are saying, please, judge, please preserve this evidence for us. Preserve this evidence for no matter how long they drag out whatever investigation DHS deems fit. No matter how long it takes and what they do, please make sure that when they're done, the evidence is unaltered, still intact, and given to us. Ruling will be coming soon. Very soon, I suspect. The other hearing, and this one was really interesting. Judge Kate Menendez, okay? Judge Kate Menendez has already ordered the federal government to dramatically curtail its investigation, or its operations, okay? There was arguments for both sides. Sorry for the pregnant pause. There was arguments for both sides. She had already mentioned, and I mentioned to you earlier, that she had said, hey, you have to stop pepper spraying demonstrators and protesters. You have to stop detaining U.S. citizens, especially when they're trying to show you their identification. You have to stop this. And so this was a follow-up hearing on that point, on that order. And what's unfortunate about this is that she admitted repeatedly during this hearing that she really is skeptical about her power, for lack of a better word, to constrain this administration in any way. All right. She has really no authority to make them listen to her. And she really didn't rule. She didn't rule on it either. She's giving the administration time to formulate its response. She wants to do another hearing Wednesday, but, you know, it's kind of symbolic. And she even said herself, I can't really do much about it. But, you know, and one of the reasons she can't do much about it is because her prior ruling was suspended by an appeals court, right? So this is a follow-up. So basically, the state, who is asking the judge to make ICE stop pepper spraying people, stop throwing citizens into trucks and dumping them off bloody in Walmart parking lots. You know, the state officials are asking for this, but Menendez can't really do anything about it. And when she tried, an appeals court suspended her ruling. So they can either wait for the argument to play out and get another ruling from Menendez that will get appealed, and eventually it will go to the Supreme Court, or not. Don't forget, they don't hear all of it. But one thing that was interesting from this hearing, from Judge Kate Menendez's hearing, is she brought up a letter sent to Tim Walz and Keith Ellison from Pam Bondi. And she called it the equivalent of a ransom note, which brings me to what I hinted at earlier, the deal making, right? Levitt said, hey, if the officials in Minnesota just adhere to these common sense requests from the administration, we think we can ease the tension of the situation, and ICE might not be needed at all. And Trump reiterated that with Walz on the phone call. What is this letter? What is this letter that Kate Menendez is referring to that is equivalent to a ransom note? I'm going to give you just a couple excerpts. This is a letter sent to Tim Walz from Pam Bondi. She talks about the state of Minnesota's refusal to enforce the law. That's how she opens it. She talks about the state of Minnesota impeding ICE's efforts, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Blah, blah, blah. You've impeded our efforts. You've pulled away law enforcement. You've made it more dangerous. You're putting our ICE agents' lives at risk. Okay? And so you all must adhere to a few demands. And if you do, we might be able to lessen ICE and CBP's presence in Minnesota. What does she ask for? She lays it right out for Tim Walz. If you want ICE gone, first, share all of Minnesota's records on Medicaid and food and nutrition service programs, including SNAP data. Give us all your SNAP data. Okay? That will help them get the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. We're talking about the administration here. The administration. They want your Social Security information. They want it from Minnesotans. Okay? Allowing the federal government, this is what they say, what she says, to efficiently investigate fraud. That's why they want it. Second, repeal all of your sanctuary policies that have led to so much crime and violence in your state. That's number 2 demand. Repeal all sanctuary policies. And third, and this is a doozy, third, allow the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to access voter rolls to confirm that Minnesota's voter registration practices comply with federal law as authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1960. She wants your voter roll information. The administration wants it. They really want it. And they want the Civil Rights Division to investigate Minnesota's voter rolls. Pam and the DOJ, they don't want the Civil Rights Division to investigate the Renee Nicole Good killing or the Alex Preddy killing. They want the Civil Rights Division to investigate voter rolls in Minnesota. That is what they're shaking them down for. That is the deal that's on the table by the Trump administration. You want ICE gone? We can make that happen. Give us your social security numbers, repeal sanctuary policies, and give us your voter rolls. And ICE will leave. It's that simple. Trump confirmed it. Leavitt confirmed it. It's laid out clearly in Pam Bondi's letter to Tim Walz. Okay? Some people are speaking about it. Okay, Secretary of State in Minnesota is speaking about it. People are speaking about it. This has been going on. This has been going on not just in Minneapolis, or Minnesota rather, for months trying to get their voter rolls. It's been going on across the country. Dozens of states are being they are demanding voter rolls from dozens of states. They are demanding that dozens of states capitulate to these demands specifically, and they are suing people. And they are suing people over it. And dozens of states so far are saying no. Some have said yes. A few sycophantic little red states have said, sure, take all of our social security numbers, take all of our voter registration, take it all. Take our SNAP data, take it all. But most are saying absolutely no, like Minnesota. And the Secretary of State of Minnesota talks about it.
So you oversee the voter rolls. What kind of information do they contain? What do you think Bondi is after? Are they going after undocumented immigrants who would vote, although I would guess there aren't that many of them, if any?
Well, here's what they want. They don't just want the public stuff, which anyone can get, name, address, voting history, stuff like that. What they want is very personal, private, sensitive data on millions of people, namely social security numbers, driver's license numbers, military service history where applicable. And this is already in litigation. Like, we're in court on this right now. They've asked for this information from dozens of states. The vast majority, like Minnesota, have said no. There are multiple lawsuits going on, including in Minnesota right now. So that's what makes this particularly puzzling. Why they want it? That's a good question. That's sort of key to the legal arguments here. Our legal position all along, before this weekend ransom note from the Attorney General, was that state and federal law don't permit them to get this data. And so what she's basically asking us for in this letter is to hand something over which we think the law precludes her from getting under these circumstances.
Well, explain it.
Yep. Boom. It's not legal. Stop trying. Don't forget how weak the Trump administration is when it comes to voting integrity, election integrity, voter rolls. The Constitution is very clear, handing all power over elections to the states. This is why the administration is trying to shake down these states. This is why they want this info so bad, because they are so weak in this area. And they know it. And they're trying to get your social security numbers. They're trying to get your voter rolls. States have all the power in this matter. Secretary of State Simon continues.
And so what she's basically asking us for in this letter is to hand something over which we think the law precludes her from getting under these circumstances.
Well, explain that to me. How would that violate state and federal law?
Well, in Minnesota, we have laws against, for example, disclosing Social Security information. And on the federal level, there's something called the Federal Privacy Act of 1974, which sets up all sorts of hoops and hurdles none of which the Justice Department has met before they would ever even be qualified to see this kind of data. So we're arguing this in court. That's where it belongs. It is in court because that's where we argue legal disputes, not elsewhere. But we certainly don't add those on a term sheet of a ransom note to restore peace and security and stability to Minnesota.
So Bondi's letter says the request for voter rolls is to confirm that your state's voter registration practices comply with federal law as authorized by the Civil Rights Act of 1960. You don't believe her?
Well, it's hard to know what they really want to do with this. And that's the issue legally in these cases is they have to show why in particular they need this particular information and what they want to do with it. Will they share it with someone? How will it be transmitted or stored or kept secure? And those are the kinds of questions we don't have answers to yet, and maybe we never will. But again, certainly they don't belong as part of this deal. What does the voter rolls have to do with what's happening on the ground right now with the ICE surge in Minnesota?
Yeah. And what he said there at the end, we don't know how it will be secured. If the administration gets a hold of more Social Security information, we don't know how secure it'll be. Why does he say that? Because even the Social Security Administration themselves admitted, oh yeah, that little Doge team of nerds, they got all of our information and they may have sold it. We don't know. We're not sure. They passed it around between each other, totally unsecure. The one thing we said wouldn't happen when Doge moved in, it happened. It happened in spades. Sorry. That's why he's talking about security. We have no idea what they'll do with this information. We don't exactly know why they want your Social Security number, but we know it's not secure. We know it's not secure. All right. I'm going to leave you with this. I feel like today we have really demonstrated a shift, a discernible shift in tone and tenor and posture out of the administration just after the Alex Preddy shooting. And I think I've expounded sufficiently on the gun nuts pressure, the NRA, Second Amendment nuts, people who really believe in their right to bear arms, all the pressure that comes with the money involved in these groups, all that pressure having an effect on what Trump is saying. Republicans in private and in public having pressure on what Trump says. Democrats, they want investigations. Republicans, they want hearings. All of it is starting to shift his posture. But the most pressure being applied to this administration right now, and they are addressing, is Bovino's style of immigration enforcement. This has got him in the most trouble. This is what's got Americans pissed off. DHS officials and ICE agents and CPB have discharged their weapons in 16 separate incidents detaining people, some U.S. citizens. 10 people have been shot, 4 of them U.S. citizens. 2 people have been killed, both of them U.S. citizens. Not one officer from ICE or CPB or Homeland Security, not one, has faced any charges or even an investigation. Not even a disciplinary measure against any of it. Nothing. None of it. This is beginning to become a problem for the Trump administration. Because I'm telling you right now, the way they've been acting directly after these shootings and directly after the killing of 2 U.S. citizens, the way they have been acting isn't just protection or excusing these actions. The way they talk about immunity, the way they demonize the victims, the way they actively decline to investigate the killings, they aren't just excusing it or protecting it. They are encouraging it. Flat out. This is the immunity garbage that he went around the country talking about during the election cycle before he became president again. When he brought that up, it was within a, typhoon of garbage that he would bring up at his rallies and on the campaign trail. And it was one little bit of minutia that kind of got lost in this huge swirl of crap. But now we are seeing the effect that talk had, and it being put into practice. And he is no longer just excusing or protecting these agents. He is encouraging these killings. at least until just now. Just now, he's willing to send Greg Bovino back to the outer reaches of whatever nether corner of hell he came from and bringing Tom Homan into Minneapolis. That is the effect that Bovino's tactics and policies and Trump's posture on these shootings, that is a sign that the effects of these things are really starting to hit Trump. They're really starting to make an impact on how he's thinking and what he's saying. We will see how far-reaching that impact is. Let's see how Homan responds. We'll be back. Pardon me. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with me, kids.